Welcome back to a Book a Day podcast, and I'm back with another book, another wonderful book. And this time I'm going to take you back, really long back, just about 1500 years ago, into the classical literature of India, which was written in Sanskrit language. But don't worry, I'm not going to recite the literary verses in Sanskrit. I'm going to tell all the things in English, and I hope you're going to like it. So, the poetry or the verses that we are discussing, they were written by Kalidasa, and the work is known as Ritusamhara, which is translated in English as the pageant of seasons or the garland of seasons, sometimes even the chronicles of seasons. And in this particular work, what Kalidasa does is he describes six major seasons of India. He starts with summer, then goes on to the rainy season of monsoon, and there is autumn, and then there is pre-winter, early winter, then winter, and finally spring. And when you think about it, that's really how the Indian calendar is described. It generally starts around the summertime in India and the year ends in just about the springtime. And it's understandable that in the last 1500 years, obviously a lot of shift must have happened in the seasons, in the climate, in the culture, and so on. But still, we can find a lot of similarities or the reflections of the ancient culture, and it's still prevalent in India, and that's really wonderful. By the way, if you're looking forward to read this work, especially in English language, there are quite a few translations available, and the most recent being that I came across was by Abhay K. And previously, I read one by um, Shankar Mokashi Punekar. Then there was one by R.S. Pandit. So quite a few translations available, but for the modern reader, I would say the one by Abhay K. recently published by Bloomsbury, that would be more appropriate. So anyway, let's come to the point. What is this book about? The way Abhay K. describes it, he says that it's really eco poetry because the poet Kalidasa here is actually talking about the nature. He's getting into the very specifics and details of nature and how it changes over many seasons. But I think there's more to that. Couple of things, in fact. One is, of course, the nature as he describes. The second one is the romantic element in Kalidasa's poetry. When he describes women, when he describes how lovers view the seasons, all these aspects, there's a lot of romanticism involved, and the way he portrays the picture of beauty and the way he romanticizes it, it's wonderful. And that romanticism for seasons, particularly rains and changing seasons and their colors, that element you would find in every aspect of India even today, even in Bollywood, in storytelling, in mass cultures. You find that romanticism, and there has been some kind of continuity in that. And without taking much of your time, let me tell you, or rather narrate a few lines from the first chapter that we are going to discuss today, which is really about summers. And even though the weather is the exact opposite of summers right now, we are in the early winter probably and going to enter the winter soon. But still, I thought we would follow the chronological order of Kalidasa instead of going by our own seasons. So let me read the first few lines to give you a flavor of how Kalidasa is describing the summers. And here it goes. The furious sun is ablaze. One longs for the moon. The pools of limpid waters invite a dip evermore. The twilight hours are charming when the day dies down, and Cupid, churner of the mind, is weary. And this, my love, is the advent of full summer. So, as you can see, he's just describing summer, just the entry of this new season. And then he goes on to describe how the moon changes, how the nights change. And then the important part, he describes the beauty of women and how they wait for their lovers and how lifestyle is and all the romanticism. And I'll narrate the few lines to give you the flavor of that. There's a lot of detail about beauty, a lot of sensuous poetry, and really interesting details of how minutely he's portraying all the details, and it's just so wonderful. So let me narrate a few lines from the poem. The delightful terraces of the mansions, fragrant with flowers and wine, vivid with the breath and the lips of the beloved, and song accompanied by well-strung lute and light, kindling the light of love, are enjoyed by amorous men during the midnights of summer. With rounded hips, whose grace is enhanced by soft white silk and the girdle, with the bosom ornate with strings of pearls or gems and sandal paste, and masses of hair with the lingering subtle perfume of bath cosmetics, women soothe the senses of their lovers during the heat of summer. So, interesting details, isn't it? But wait, it really gets even more sensuous and wonderful. Mysterious breasts with the fluid paste of sandal and precious strings of snow white pearls commingling, and the region of the hips with the quivering golden girdle, whose mind do they not allure and fill with a wistful yearning. Proud young women in beauty's bloom, overcome by sheer and effusive moisture, underarm and on perfect limbs, discard their cumbersome garments and cover their high and pointed breasts with fine linen and thin raiment. Dormant Cupid, as if he were asleep, is awakened with the gentle breeze of fans moistened with sandal water, with soft melodious music tuned to Walaki lute and Kakali pipe, and the gentle pressure of rounded breasts inseparable from ropes of pearls. So that's really the typical style of Kalidasa of appreciating the beauty of woman, and describes all those details. He paints the picture wonderfully, and from there on he goes on to describe the nature, and one by one he describes all those different animals and creatures who are being affected by the heat in summers. So whether they are antelopes or wild boars or even the cobra, he's describing all the wildlife that is there, and even in water, for example, the fish. He described the fish and all the life that is getting affected by the heat. There are droughts, there are wildfires, and how all of that life is getting affected. And then comes the third element that I was talking about. One was definitely the eco poetry, second was the romanticism, and the third element, the storytelling, the drama, and he's able to create that drama within the natural elements. What he does is he's describing kind of forest fires here, but does it in a really dramatic fashion where he's portraying fire as one creature and the forest is another, and then comes the third character, wind, that is playing neutral but somehow enabling the battle and feeding more energy into it. So the way he's imagining all these elements fighting together, it's really interesting, and something that you wouldn't find in most other poems. So let me read a few lines about how he's describing those flames, the fire, and how it's getting spread across the forest, and how he's bringing those non-living elements to life. So here he goes. The tongues of the flames have the fiery tinge of the opening petals of the palasha bloom. The configuration, like glistening sindura, is vermilion. Swiftly it spreads by the force of the whirlwind, and embracing the tender leafage of creeper and brushwood and tree, is filled with a wild ecstasy, and many a glade and green recess is soon burnt to cinder and ashes. The smouldering fire, hugging the precincts, leaps into flames fanned by the breeze, and spreads to the distant hills and dales. With a cracking noise it sweeps through tall clumps of the withering bamboo, and in a trice, gathering strength, pervades the wilted grass, scaring and scathing the denizens of the wood. The flames grow manifold in power in the grooves of the salmali trees, whose hollow trunks afire are glowing like burnished gold. Leaping to the boughs of the neighboring trees, reft of ripe and fallen leaves, the flames invade the heart of the forest, urged by the miscreant wind. So that's how it goes. I'm not sure if you've witnessed the forest fires in India, but those of us who've lived closer to mountains in the hills, this happens every year. We see the forest fires and we see how it affects the wildlife over there. And it's something that happens all the time in almost all parts of these hilly forests. And the way poet has described it, it's exactly the same even in today's time. And that I find really fascinating, especially the details of it, how the fire spreads, how it affects the wild animals, and all the details in it. But that's just the one season, that's the summers, and all this goes on one side in the human society. There are parts of it that you enjoy, there are parts of it that you might struggle with, but in the wild, they constantly have these challenges. Whether it's summers, rains, winters, they constantly face the challenges. There is no romanticism over there. It's only in the human society. And that is something very evident from Kalidasa's poetry. So I'll leave you with that. That's just the first chapter of it. We'll move to the next 5 chapters in the upcoming episodes. And I hope you'd like this series. Stay with me, and I'll catch you the next time. Thank you.